Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and today the Minnesota Timberwolves and the New York Knicks have shocked the NBA world with a unexpected, shocking trade, blockbuster trade, as Karl Anthony Towns has been traded to the New York Knicks, and Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo have been traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves alongside a salary filler in Daquan Jeffries. And to me, this isn't very important, and I'll explain why a draft pick via Detroit is going to Minnesota in this trade. But for context, that Detroit first-round pick that Minnesota is getting is lottery protected. I would think it's safe to it's top 13 protected. I think it would be safe to to assume that the Pistons are in the top 13 again this year. Me personally, I've talked about the Pistons a lot on my channel. I think the Pistons are going to be a more improved team this year because I think they've added in some pieces, starting off with Tobias Harris. I'm not here to talk about the Pistons, although I'm just saying I think they'll be better. I still think they're a lottery team. And if you're not a lottery team, that means you're in the playoffs. So the Pistons are not making the playoffs. I think they'll be better. They'll take a jump, but they're not taking that leap. So I don't think Minnesota's going to be able to keep that pick. But hey, Minnesota fans, I guess you're going to be rooting for the Pistons this year. If you want to keep that draft pick. But anyway, so you got Randle and Donte and salary filler Jeffries going to Minnesota, the draft pick, although that's most likely not staying in Minnesota, and then Karl Anthony Towns going to New York. I've talked about my perspective and my thoughts on the New York Knicks getting Karl Anthony Towns. Quick little recap here. I like it for the Knicks. I think it does hurt losing Donte. Julius Randle, not so much. I like Julius Randle. I think he is a good player. But personally, I think Karl Anthony Towns is a better player. Not by much, not by much, but I think Karl Anthony Towns is a better player. He's a better shooter. For starters, I mean, Karl Anthony Towns shot 42% from three last year. Was probably the best three-point shooter at the center position in the NBA, strictly the center position. If you look at the top centers, so you look at guys like Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Kristaps Porzingis, Karl Anthony Towns. They'll look at the elite centers. Shooting from three, Karl Anthony Towns was number one in percentage. So, yeah, he was really good from three last year. That should be interesting to see how that works in New York, joining a team who already has so much talent at the three-point position with Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson. Of course, mainly more of the top shooters like Deuce McBride and OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges are some of their best shooters. And now you add in Karl Anthony Towns to that shooting group right there in New York. So I think that should be interesting. Now, me saying I like Karl Anthony Towns going to New York doesn't mean I don't think this is a good trade for Minnesota or think they get worse. I think Minnesota, I don't think there's really a loser in this trade. I think New York improved, and I think Minnesota improved. I think New York had a lot of concerns with Julius Randle. The injuries from last year and if that could affect them as a team this year, if he could get injured again. Recently, we've just learned that there was a contract extension thing. The Knicks weren't really too excited about giving Julius a contract extension like he wanted. I'm wondering what their perspective of the Timberwolves are. Are they willing to give a contract extension to Randle? Also, some of his playoff performances, he underperformed to be one of the top guys in the playoffs. I mean, this is a guy who averaged 16 points per game for the Knicks in the 2022-23 postseason in 10 games. He averaged 18 points per game in the 2021 season in the playoffs for the Knicks. Keep in mind, in the 22-23 season with the Knicks, he was an all-star, and he averaged 25 points per game. But then in the postseason, he didn't even average 17. And then the 2021 season, another year where he was an all-star, he was even at top 10 MVP candidate, won most improved, averaged 24 points per game, was considered the best player on the New York Knicks in the 2021 season, and then he'll average 18 points per game for the Knicks in the postseason and shot 28%. His two combined seasons in the playoffs for the New York Knicks shot 34% in the two seasons, 28% and 37%. So him not playing well in the postseason, I think, is a real concern for the New York Knicks. Meanwhile, you have a guy like Karl Anthony Towns on the other end who's actually done pretty solid in the postseason. I mean, this past playoffs, playing with a guy like Anthony Edwards, who is the number one option, averaged 20 points per game in the playoffs with 9 rebounds per game and 3 assists, and he averaged 47. His field goal percentage was 47%, which was way better than any postseason for Julius Randle. Also shot 36% from three. Cat was not good in the 2022-23 postseason with Minnesota, but in the 2021-22 postseason with Minnesota, shot 45% from three in a 6-game series against the Phoenix Suns, averaging 22 points per game. If you ask me, I think Karl Anthony Towns has been a lot better in the playoffs than Julius Randle has. I'm not saying Cat has had his playoff struggles, but not as much as Julius Randle has had. But for Minnesota, I also look at Donte DiVincenzo, and I really like the addition. Minnesota has a lot of great three-point shooting before this. Edwards is a good three-point shooter. Mainly Jaden McDaniels. I love the three-point shooting of Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid. They have some other good shooters on their team. So to then add in DiVincenzo, I think it's a great addition. We're talking about a guy who's still kind of considered young, 27 years old, and also was pretty healthy last season, 81 games. Looking at him shooting over 40% from three last season with the Knicks, almost 38% in his career, averaged 15.5 points per game, had a career year with the New York Knicks, and now Minnesota gets to add him in, so I'm excited about that part of it. I think when you compare Randle and Karl Anthony Towns, and just those two guys, I think it's obvious that Karl Anthony Towns is the better player, and I think anybody would probably, or most people would probably take Karl Anthony Towns over Julius Randle. But then when you add DiVincenzo to this, it definitely changes things, because it's not just Randle that they're getting. They're also getting a great three-point shooter and a good scorer and a very decent defender and DiVincenzo. And that's why I think Minnesota doesn't really hurt at all in this trade. I think you downgrade a little bit, just a tiny bit, from Randle, going from Karl Anthony Towns to Julius Randle, but then you also add in Donte DiVincenzo. You'll also add in, I guess, a deep roster guy, and Daquan Jeffries, who was also added in this trade, and you also get the potential long shot and potential not great chance of having a first-round pick if the Pistons somehow have a good season. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens, but right now I like this trade for both teams. But honestly, if I had to pick a bigger winner in this trade, for me, if Julius Randle stays healthy, the Timberwolves look pretty good with this trade. But also I look at the Knicks, and if they stay healthy, I look at guys like Karl Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby. If those two guys can stay healthy, and why I mention those two guys, because those two guys have had some injury troubles in the past. If those two guys stay healthy alongside Josh Hart and Bridges and Brunson, who are assuming guys you don't have to be worried about getting injured, those 5 guys right there, and then also having a bench with Deuce McBride and Campaign. Also, eventually you'll get back Mitchell Robinson, Precious Achiuwa. This Knicks team is pretty good. I mean, I look at both these teams right now, and I look at both Minnesota and New York, and I think if both of them stay healthy, they're probably top seeds in their conference. I mean, I think Minnesota is probably still top 3 seed in the Western Conference, if not top 4. And I think New York is 2 or 3 right now. So right now, I think it's Boston's probably still the 1 seed, and then New York's either the 2 or 3 seed, and I think the 2 or 3 seed is a mix up between the Knicks and the 76ers. Let me know your thoughts on the trade in the comment section, and peace out.